Welcome to Tough Conversations with David Wood, where play meets depth. We help teams and high-performing leaders like you to master your tough conversations so you succeed in your career and in your life. When we avoid tough conversations, we stay small. Teams stay disengaged, conflicted, and ultimately end up quitting. When we lean in and master our tough conversations, they become the defining moments that literally shape our careers, our relationships, and our lives. So let's dive in and master your next tough conversation so you can be the leader that you would follow. Let's play. Yeah, two people with hidden agendas sounds like a mess. But
It not only sounds, it is.
yeah, but you don't have to have two people with clear agendas. It only takes one to tango. Welcome, guys. This is an exciting episode for me because this is a real life case study from our free weekly Zoom call. So this is not just theory. This is a listener who has come onto the call and we go through a real life conversation that he wants help in having. Now you can register for these free calls at playforreal.life/Zoom register. Now, in this one, we spent 5 minutes getting clear on John's key issues. Who's the issue with? What's his hope? What's a fear or concern that he has? What is the issue? What's a request that he might have? And what happens if he steps into the other person's shoes? So we do all that. In this episode, we're going to jump ahead of that and go straight to the actual role play where we help him role play his conversation. Now, I'll give you a summary so you know what it's about. John feels his mother has a hidden agenda when they talk. For example, she wants him to come home for Christmas, but she's not saying that. She's just kind of manipulating, trying to get him to do it, and he gets angry. So he feels like he doesn't want to come home for Christmas, and that's a real issue for him. Let's jump straight to the role play and get stuck into it. All right. So I'm hearing that you don't feel close to your mother, and so you don't feel like going home for Christmas. So it's having an impact on your relationship. And I'm hearing that it feels like just too much history sometimes, and like maybe things can't even change. It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. And that there are some ways she communicates with you that don't feel good, and you're interested in seeing if you could change those. Is there anything you want to correct in there?
Yeah, no, that sounds right. So I'm kind of okay, but then at the same time, I see the relationship not improving because I'm not able to
No.
communicate,
Yeah, there's a cost.
Yeah.
All right. This is plenty of prep. What I'd like to do now is do a role play with you where you are your mother, I'll be you, and don't be easy on me. Whatever you honestly think she would say, and if there's something you're worried she could say, then you get to say that to me and see how someone else might handle it.
Okay.
Hi, Mum, it's John.
Hi, John.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something that's a little edgy for me, but I want to bring it up because I feel like it might have us feel closer, might have me feel closer to you. And I really want that. Like I noticed I'm not coming home for Christmas, and that's not okay with me. I want to come home to Christmas, and I want to feel closer to you. So can we talk for about probably take at least 10 minutes? And I'd like to share what's going on and see if I can resolve this for myself. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Thank you. I know that sounds a bit weird, but I'm kind of fumbling my way through it. My concern about bringing it up is that I may not be clear, right? This is new for me, and I may fumble. I may get the words wrong. And I'm also worried that things won't change. What if I speak up and nothing changes, and that feels draining and I just give up? I am a bit worried about that, but this is so important to me. You are so important to me that I think it's worth rolling the dice and having this conversation again, in the hope that I can feel closer to you, and maybe you'll feel closer to me. So I can start. I can tell you what I got.
Yes, John. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, this is new for me. So I appreciate you being willing to listen to me fumbling around trying to get this right. The issue for me is sometimes when we speak, I feel like you have a hidden agenda. It's like there's something you're trying to make happen, but you haven't told me outright. You haven't said it cleanly and explicitly. And so it feels awkward for me, and I start to get angry. And I can give you an example, because I'm realizing you may not even be aware that it's happening. You're just being my mom. And so I can give you an example. Would you like to hear an example?
Yes.
Okay. When we were talking about me coming home for Christmas, it felt like you were trying to get me to come home for Christmas, but you didn't just say, I want you to come home for Christmas, and I'd like to make a pitch and see if I can get you to come home for Christmas. Is that okay? Like, it kind of wasn't overt and straight. And I started feeling like you were trying to get me to do something instead of just saying it outright. And I wonder if you might be willing to practice and experiment with being more direct in saying when you want something, so that I know what it is. And if I feel like it's happening, can I bring it up? Can I say, it feels like you might have a hidden agenda here. Is that right? Can we get on the same page about it? Would you be willing to experiment? That'd be my first request.
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Thank you. And if I feel like it's happening, because I might feel like it's happening and I could be wrong. But if I feel like it's happening, can I bring it up and say, hey, do you have an agenda here? Can we talk about that and just find out what's happening here? Is that all right?
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Thank you. And I apologize for not doing that earlier. You know, I've been on calls with you where I felt like that's happening and I haven't said that. And that's on me. So I commit to bringing that up again to make it easier for us. So now at this point, I want to thank you for listening to me. I really appreciate it. I was a bit nervous about having this call. And now I want to get curious and find out what you're thinking. Like, how's it look to you? Do you feel like you have had a hidden agenda, or is this a surprise for you to hear me say this? I want to hear anything you've got to say right now.
Yes, Jana, I don't have a hidden agenda.
Okay.
I always tell you what I think.
Well, you know, hearing that, I realize it's quite possible that you've always been very clear, and maybe it's not hidden at all. In fact, it's quite open. And in my face, you want me to come home for Christmas. So hearing that, I'm realizing maybe I don't even need you to say it outright. I can tell what you want. Maybe I could be more clear and say, sounds like you really want me to come home for Christmas. Is that right?
Yeah.
So thank you. I just got an insight. You know, maybe I can be clearer in my communication. All right. Well, I got to tell you, I feel closer to you now. So I kind of thought like you had to change for me to feel closer, but I feel closer because you've been willing to listen, and I got to say all this and I actually realized something about myself. So I'm going to call this a success, and thanks for listening. And I think I am going to miss you on Christmas Day.
Yeah, thank you, John.
I like those chimes going off in the background. Is that to signify that this is complete?
I guess so. Very good timing.
Yeah, good. All right, let's stop the role play there. And I'd love to do a debrief with you, John, and find out how that was for you. And then I'm curious for some reflections from Heather, who's one of our other coaches. How was that for you? What did you learn?
I learned that I probably don't have the courage to have that conversation right now. Out of the blue, I know that something that happens to me is when these things happen, these conversations with my mom, I get blocked because I don't identify the hidden agenda right there. So I get very upset and angry because it's kind of the subconscious picks up, but I'm not able to process at the moment, because otherwise I could have the conversation right there and then.
So I heard that you don't have the courage right now to have the conversation. So I love your awareness on that.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have the conversation when you are ready. And that you realize that in the moment when it happens, you don't have the clarity to say what's happening. And you'd like her to have the clarity, but you don't have the clarity. So maybe you'd like her to have the clarity for both of you.
Yeah, because there's something true that is, in that sense, I acknowledge that my way to communicate is probably not the best either. What I want.
Yeah. And I don't say this because I think you're wrong. I say this because whenever I can find a place that I can be responsible for something, when I can find that it's my fault, I'm happy because I can change it. And it gives me access to a deeper connection with my mum, for example, in this case, and say, oh, I realize I want you to know exactly what you want, but also I want me to know exactly what I want, and I don't always know that. Maybe we can work it out together.
Yeah, and that makes total sense because it's both sides' responsibility, and
Well, that's a step up to say it's both sides' responsibility. A higher step, when I can get there, is to say it's all my responsibility. Not because that's right or morally better, just because it works better. If I can say it's my responsibility to work out what the agenda is on the call, then I can take that on. I don't need my mother to be clear. I can say, it feels like you want me to come home for Christmas. Is that what's driving this, or is it something else? And if she said, well, yeah, of course I do. Okay, now it's out in the open. It's stated.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Let's go to Heather. I feel like a news announcer right now. We're going to go to Heather in the field. And Heather, any insights, reflections, or suggestions for how we could have even upgraded it?
Coming to you live from Houston, Texas. Something I do as a rule of thumb for me in life is when in doubt, slow down. So I can imagine being on a call and something feels a little off when you're speaking with your mother. It's wait, I'm feeling kind of tense, or this feels strange. If she's starting to make comments that sound like there's something she's wanting, maybe the first sign is you feeling some tension or stress. And then you can even name just a second, let me, something feels a little off, or let me check on something. And that might give you a little, a moment to be what feels weird here.
What comes to mind is when I realize, because I realize I get very uncomfortable and very distant at the time, but maybe is to say, hey, maybe we can have this conversation in half an hour. I call you back, because then at some point, at that time, I have the time to kind of settle myself and then have a conversation, knowing what to expect, and then be prepared to, just take it, I don't know, more gently, rather than having the stress out of the call and not being able to respond in the best way. So yeah, thanks for the comment. Yeah.
You don't have to try and work it all out in real time. Hey, can I call you back in half an hour? Take time to think about it and then come back once you realize. Or you might say, I want to get my thoughts together. They're all jumbled. I want to take some time. I love that. Or my favorite is I might share, you know what? I was angry with you because I wanted you to be clear about your agendas. I felt like you had hidden agendas. I've now realized I can just speak up. I can take time to go and think about what's bugging me, come back onto the phone and just check with you. Hey, is this what you want right now? I don't need you to change a thing. Those are the best calls, because you don't need anything from the other person, but you're telling on yourself as a way to demonstrate your commitment to changing something going forward. So you got some fun options. Yeah, two people with hidden agendas sounds like a mess.
But it not only sounds, it is.
Yeah, but you don't have to have two people with clear agendas. It only takes one to tango.
It's interesting how you need to get enough courage to make the phone call twice rather than once, because the first time didn't work out, and you need to put up the courage again to call second time.
That's so true. One of the toughest calls I ever made in my life, I had to make 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
Because the person wasn't picking up, and each time it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And then when it happened, it was way better than I imagined. It's rarely as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah. What happens if when you ask the person for permission to have the conversation, if they say no, they don't want to have the conversation?
That's a great question. I think, so let's say the person says no. That might be related to how you've asked and you haven't presented it well, because your job is to enroll them or even sell them on having the conversation.
Mm.
If it doesn't look
Yeah.
fun to them, if it just looks like you might be attacking them or criticizing them, of course they're going to say no. So in the download that you got from the website at playforreal.life, you'd see a worksheet, and one of the first questions on the worksheet is, what is your hope from the conversation? And if your hope for the conversation includes the other person, something that's good for them, they'll probably say yes. The other thing, I know what it's like to try and call someone and you've got this thing and you've worked up your courage and the person doesn't answer, or you get voicemail. Or I had someone a couple of days ago, she said, I want to hear anything you've got to say on this, but not until tomorrow. I'm like, why do I got to sit with this for a whole day? So I'm a big fan of creating videos, and you can go to loom.com, loom.com for free. And you can create a video of yourself and send them a link, and you can ask their permission. Can I send you my initial thoughts on video about a topic? I'm happy to talk about it, but I wanted to get the ball rolling with the video. And you might share your hope with that. You might tell them the topic, or you might not, but I love getting it down into a video. And if I don't like the video, I delete it, I do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all you need. People send back their own video, or they send back comments. Maybe we get on the phone. But I'm a big fan of doing that first run, particularly if you don't think you're going to get it. You're going to fumble with your words and you're worried you're not going to bring up all the right points, or if you're worried they might get defensive. It might be a nice way to start it off so they can have time to think, and then you go to round two. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that role play with John on getting closer with his mother and also learning a lot about himself. Again, you can register for the free weekly Zoom call on role-playing tough conversations at playforreal.life/Zoom register. And we may showcase your tough conversation on a future podcast. And you can stay completely anonymous. You can turn the video off and use a fake name just as John did. And we'd love to see you on the call. You've been listening to Tough Conversations with David Wood. Now it's action time. Mastering your tough conversations will have a major impact on your team, your company, and you as a high-performing executive or entrepreneur. If you're ready, request a discovery session with me at playforreal.life so we can transform your team, your company, and you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love you to help me spread this message of tough conversations in a very simple way. Just leave a public review at playforreal.life/podcast. And you may hear me read it out loud and thank you live on a future podcast. Now, let's play.